Now, the exact point of why I ever have created any type of fishing channel is to get people to the moment where they actually catch a fish. That is the most exciting thing about fishing, right? Because we can go out there for days and we just fish, but when we catch a fish, like that's what it's all about. But because of the excitement of catching a fish, sometimes we forget to do the two most important things when we catch a fish. And to me, this will help you to catch way more fish by doing just these two little things. But real quick, before we get into the video, guys, this video, as always, is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. I have USA-made sun shirts, I have hats, I have gloves. I'm really pumped about it. If you guys want to help support this channel, click those links down below in the description. All right, let's talk about this. When you catch a fish, what are the two things that you need to do? Now, the first one is pretty simple, and that is pick that area where you caught that fish apart. Completely pick that thing apart. If you guys have ever watched underwater footage of bass, they are almost never alone. Never alone. And I was fortunate enough to grow up on a pond. My parents had a pond in my backyard, and it was pretty clear pond. You could see down 3 or 4 foot. And I would always just go around and just watch fish all the time. And every single time you would see one bass, you would see 2 bass or 3 bass with that fish. There's almost never a time where there's just one fish in an area. And this is something that I have applied to everywhere I've gone in the country. If you catch just one fish, sometimes what I actually like to do is like go in reverse a little bit. Almost when I catch a fish, sometimes I will kind of bring my boat out because I'm primarily fishing from a boat, and I will actually circle back about 25, 30 foot and fish through the next like 50 to 100 foot section, maybe it's a bank, very, very thoroughly. Very thoroughly, because more than likely there is a fish in that exact area, another fish in that exact area. And the funny thing to me is that fishing, anytime you go out there fishing, or if you guys, for example, if you watch a lot of tournament fishing, like I love watching Bassmaster, and if you see what happens most days out there when guys catch fish, you think that they might catch them all day, but most of the time they might go 4, 5, 6 hours without catching a lot of fish. But there's just a little 30-minute window or a half hour, same thing, or an hour window where the guy catches all the weight that he will have for that day. And this is kind of the same concept, is that bass are almost always together. And so if you pick that area apart, sure, you might not catch anything, but a lot of times you might just catch one other fish, or sometimes you might catch 2 fish. I remember when I really learned this concept, I was flipping and pitching the bank, and I was fishing bushes, and I flipped into a bush that was like this big on Wheeler Lake a long time ago, and I caught a bass out of it, and for whatever reason, usually I wouldn't normally do this because I kind of felt like, man, I caught that fish out of that bush, let's just fish the next bush. I flipped right back in that same bush and caught a fish, and it was a bigger fish, and it wasn't even during like a spawning event where this happens even more so. So it was just like, it just clicked with me that anytime you catch one, fish that immediate area so thoroughly. Okay, and now I'm being a little bit long-winded with that. Let's talk about the second thing that you need to do, and this is probably the most important, and that is examine everything about that fish and where you caught it. This is really, really important. A lot of times examining the actual fish itself is really, really important because you'll get little clues. So a lot of times the biggest clue that I'm looking for is maybe what this fish is eating. There are so many times you go out there, you catch a fish, you look down its throat and you see little pinchers hanging out where you're like, okay, these fish are focusing on crawfish, or you'll see a shad tail or a bluegill tail or a crappie tail, and you can get an idea of what the fish are biting. And if you know what the fish are eating, a lot of times that's going to help you to know what exact lure can kind of mimic what they are eating. That's really, really important. The other thing about examining is where you caught that fish. Why did you catch that fish where you caught it? You know, was it next to deep water? Was it in really shallow water? Was there current hitting that particular area? You want to examine every aspect of it. Was it in 3 foot of water, 5 foot of water, 10 foot of water? Was it, you know, everything? Everything, you want to pick that thing apart, because the biggest thing that we can now do, now that we have a clue, is try to duplicate it. Because, I mean, you go to any given body of water, there's tons and tons of water to fish, and it can be overwhelming. But when you get that one clue, examine it and be like, man, maybe you find out that the bass are on a very specific rock transition. It goes from chunk rock to pea gravel. And now you know, well, I'm just gonna go down the lake, and everywhere I see chunk rock to pea gravel, I'm gonna hit that, and I'm gonna be able to catch another fish. That is really, really important to do. That can be the difference. That is, to me, I relate this a lot to a quarterback. When a quarterback starts to see the field, when the game starts to slow down for them. You know, I'm a Buckeye fan. I've been watching CJ Stroud on the Texans all year, and he's really like dominated, and you hear him say things are starting to slow down for him. And this is the exact thing that happens in bass fishing. When you pick up on these little clues, things start to slow down. You start to realize what you now need to look for, and it becomes so much better. So guys, those are the 2 things that you can do when you're out there fishing that can really help you to catch more fish. So if you guys want to watch the video I did yesterday, I'm going to leave it linked right up here, and I will see you guys tomorrow.